Sometimes it's easy to fall off track. These help us remember.
These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Growing up, I had a dream, something no one else could see. Tell me what it means when your faith is falling beneath your knees and you can't breathe. Everything you see reminds you of what you're not or something you won't be. You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business. Not because they wanna do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shame. And that's the reason I'm staying up late, trying to find a way to escape the stereotypes this day and age is making me feel like the only way I'll be happy is getting signed to a label and making money through rapping. I wanna share my emotion because this world is attacking the very principle of life that lets the people be happy. If you don't have a reason to breathe, why even live? These battle scars are impressions of everything that it is.
Don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Now, if I had a voice that reached 100 million people, I'd tell them there's a reason that we're all created equal. Cause some decide to be great and some decide a sequel to an average person's life is simply what they want to be. So you make your decision, all I know is what I'm given won't define the life I lead or the way I dwell in existence. I've seen a greater image on the walls of where I'm living, and the words twisted and scripted remind me of something written. Faith is a gift that is given down to the people. If one believes it, one receives it. It's given if it is needed. Don't ever think you're trapped in a life that you never wanted. Your options are infinite, that's some mathematical logic. I'm not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers and these battle scars on my church. Not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers, these battle scars on my church.
Don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change.
Well, hello everyone. How are you doing? Bunchy is still freaking out. I don't know why. One day he'll just settle down. Maybe it's some kind of oracle. It's the Bunchy oracle. I guess this means we're going to have, what is it, when you see the groundhog sees his shadow? Whatever it might be. I know one thing it's an oracle of. For some reason, like, it's decided to become the North Pole here in Colorado. So Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, allegedly, don't come for me, we're going to have minus degrees. Like, I'm a Florida girl, okay? I'm originally from Florida. Stream quality has been automatically lowered. Sorry that my stream quality is not good. I am backing up my Elpedia drive right now. I use Google to keep another copy of things, and it slows down all my streaming. I should know better, but sorry, if the quality's super, super bad, we'll just abort. Hello, JJ. How are you doing? Probably saw me haunting the Roberts Rules forum today. I see Alicia's there as well, which is nice to see. And hello, Michael. I have a stream every night, almost. Or I try. Okay, so before we get started, do have to do my YouTuber things. We're going to do a little out of order this time. First, a sponsor, Asteros. So right in time for the holidays, even some of the smartest people can get hooked in by very sophisticated phishing scams. And sometimes not even that sophisticated, because sometimes the simpler ones can be the most deceitful. So if you run an online organization or you have an online business, and if you have a business, you have an online presence, make sure it's secure. You know, go to Asteros, ASTEROS.com/free, and they will give you a free surface penetration audit. Ooh la la. Actually, they'll poke and prod at your security for your online business or organization and give you a little mini health checkup as to how things are going. But also they do offer services where there's training for your volunteers or employees to help them from falling prey to internet scams. And it can happen to the best of us. And those of us who think it can never happen to, that's exactly who it's going to happen to. All right. And I didn't do the hotkeys yet for this, but please subscribe. It seems like me asking for subscriptions has helped. It's gone up a little bit. But if you're watching and you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, please just do that. I truly, truly appreciate it. And give it a like while you're down there. Also, you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, any social media. I am Karen Ann Harlos. Today was a fire day again for me on Twitter. Thank you, National Libertarian Party, for sharing my post. It's gotten a lot of traffic. If I can paraphrase, I don't remember my exact wording, but it basically was, all we need is more, like, if only we got more government, we could government right. So it was something to that extent. And lastly, as I always say, please, if you like my content and you'd like to encourage and bless me, please support me on patreon.com/Pink Flame of Liberty. I would truly, truly appreciate it. All right, before we get started on the LP history for today, and after I've already done my complaining about it with wind chill going to be -17 on Wednesday or Thursday, I've got my little heater here. I'm going to have to build a fire, because it is going to be so cold in this basement. I can't even say. You'll see me coming down with a big winter coat on to do my shows. Tomorrow's probably going to be a short show because Wayne, damn son, he must be stomping around there. It's making everything jump. I have a historical preservation committee meeting tomorrow, so that means I stay late at work because. See how my camera's bouncing? That's Wayne walking around upstairs. Wayne, if you're watching this show, please don't be a Clydesdale. Like, kitten feet, please. So yeah, I stay for about an hour and a half after work hour and a half to go to the meeting. He's still bouncing around up there. So I don't get home till later, but I've got a short episode that I can squeeze in. And I hit pause before I came down here. I was watching a show by Matt Walsh, and it was just infuriating. And I'm going to be responding to that soon, too. Because these conservatives, man, they are becoming super... Look, see the bouncy? Hold on. Wayne! Tread lighter! Shut the door, too, while you're at it. Okay. So yeah, these conservatives, boy, it's just giving me shades of the old Christian right. You know, they're wanting laws for everything. You know, Matt Walsh wants just laws outlawing pornography in general. It's like, dude, like, not, all right, whatever. I'll do a show on that. But let's get to the LP history, shall we? I think I'm going to leave comments up. I would love to hear what you all are talking about. Again, I'm trying to keep these shows a little short, keep them into wee episodes. So, we did the column last time, is collapse of the two-party system ahead. But there was like a little insert in the middle that we said we were going to save for today, and that was most Royce Report top scorers retain office after 1974 election. So the Royce Report was a libertarian scorecard for legislators is what I'm trying to say. And in this report, apparently most people who scored high, they retained their seat. So let's look at this, and I gotta get my little magnifying glass because this print is so tiny. All right. In looking over the rubble left by the 1974 elections, it is interesting to note that while American people emphatically rejected the Republican Party, they did not necessarily endorse the welfare state philosophy traditionally associated with the Democratic Party. Many of the Democrats who won did so by promising to be even more tight-fisted than the Republicans. Boy, I wish we had that today. And most of the best Republicans survived, and best is in quote marks, the debacle quite well. Conservatives of the ACU, what is that? ACU stripe. First I thought that said ACLU, but it says ACU. I'm not sure what that stands for. Are lamenting that many of their fair-haired boys went down the tubes, but from a libertarian viewpoint, most of the Cold War traditionalists that got booted out are no big loss. Out of the 10, yes, only 10 members of the House who attained an average score of 60 or higher in the first 3 editions of the Royce Report, 7 will be returning to the 94th Congress, and only 1 of the 10 lost his seat in the November election, while 1 retired and 1 lost in the primaries. The top 10 with average Royce rating scores are as follows. All but Rarick are Republicans. Okay, my glasses are slipping. Maybe, yeah, American Conservative Union. Thank you. Okay. So, we have Gross from Iowa, 86%. Rarick, Louisiana, and I guess he was a Democrat, 75%. Sims, Idaho, 69%. Remember, Sims was someone who identified as a small L libertarian. When he is elected, he's an apple farmer out of Idaho. And at the time, when he was first elected, he was an anarcho-capitalist. Boy, did he apostatize later. Okay, just reminding you of him. I consider him the first libertarian elected to federal office. Elected. A lot of people will say Justin Amash is the first one in federal office. He switched. Second. I consider Sims to be the first. And so did the writers of LP News at the time. Roosevelt, California, 68%. Crane, Illinois, 65%. Schuster, Pennsylvania, 63%. Landgrabe, Indiana, 62%. Ashbrook, Ohio, 60%. Johnson, Colorado, 60%. Miller, Ohio, 60%. The only one defeated in the general election was Landgrabe, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, who made a thorough ass of himself by his undying loyalty to Nixon. Speeches during the Watergate mess. We should shed few tears at his passing. Our greatest loss, of course, is H.R. Gross, who towered above his contemporaries in the House like a 7-foot giant in a tribe of pygmies. One cannot blame Mr. Gross for retiring at the age of 75, but his departure will be a great loss to the Friends of Freedom. The third top tenor who won't be back is Rarick, who was defeated by a liberal in the Democratic primary. However, as of press time, it appears that the liberal was in turn defeated by Republican Henson Moore in the general election. His margin of victory, if it holds up, was less than 50 votes. Wow! That's a close election. JJ says, when you get a chance, look at that list in your resume. Okay. The Louisiana LP worked actively in Moore's campaign. Who says libertarians can't make a difference? And then here's this terminology that David Nolan liked and the early Libertarian Party liked, which is semi-libertarian. People today would frickin' clutch their pearls. Other semi-libertarian candidates supported by LP groups, often on an unofficial basis, did not fare as well. Clyde Lewis, a former State Liberty Amendment chairman, lost his Senate bid in Alaska, as did Bob Smith, Steve Sims' 1972 campaign manager in Idaho, and Mickey Edwards, author of Hazardous to Your Health, who ran for U.S. House in Oklahoma with state LP endorsement. Now, if you're wondering why state LPs were endorsing non-libertarian candidates, that wasn't prohibited in our bylaws at the time, and the reason it wasn't is we didn't have ballot access or ballot access. Yeah, ballot access, or even, what's the other word I like to use? Because ballot access, I think, has different terminology than being on the ballot. We didn't have either. Like, it was impossible to get on as an independent, and even more impossible to get on as a libertarian. So, it would be interesting to, if you guys remind me, well, we don't actually have all of our early bylaws, which to me is like insane. How is it that the National Party doesn't have copies of all of its bylaws? We are missing huge gaps. If you're an old timer listening to this and you've got copies of old bylaws in your house, we might need them. Let's actually, while we're at it, let's look this up 1 second. So let me pull up Lpedia here, because it is insane. Absolutely insane. And we don't have all of our convention minutes, which to me is just as crazy. Like, how, like, I can see not having all the LNC minutes, even though I still think that's, like, inexcusable. Yeah, we're not missing that many bylaws. It's actually more the convention minutes that I was trying to get lathered up about. Let me show you what the bylaws. I was thinking more of convention minutes, but still, the fact that we're missing any bylaws at all is crazy. I found some over the years, but let's show the screen here. Let's see if we can move this out of the way. So, looks like what bylaws we're missing. Remember, we had yearly conventions for a while. So, it looks like we're missing 76 through 79 if they were amended in those years. Why is there 2 for 80? I think there's somebody put something wrong in here. Let's look up these two. I think one of these should be a different year. I think I found a typo. 1980. 81. See, one of those should be 81. So I'll have to fix that because they both say 80. So the second one should be probably 81. I don't remember what year we were in Denver again. And then we're missing 81, 82, 83, 84, if there were any changes those years. And then 86, 87, 88. Because I think it was 96 when we went to every other year conventions. When was it that we went to every other year? No, maybe it was 1980. But I know we switched from odd number years to even number years in 96. So we went from, I don't know, but as you can tell, we are missing a lot. But we're missing even more convention minutes. I don't know if I have convention minutes as a list in itself. No, I think we just have a list of national conventions. I think. Yeah, here's our convention history. So we can see what years. Yeah, 96 is when we went to even number years. So we went 3 years between 93 and 96 in order to get to even number years. So we didn't have, so when did we go to every 2 years? 80 wasn't a real convention. So how did we amend our bylaws in 1980 if we didn't have a convention in 1980? 1980 was a weird thing. It wasn't a real convention, but we must have allowed our bylaws. Now I've got all kinds of rabbit trails I want to go down, because 1980 was Alternative 80, which was the Clark Koch campaign. It wasn't a real convention. But apparently we amended our bylaws. I'm going to need to research that. That's super interesting. But it looks like we went to every other year right after that, because we went 81, 83, 85, 87, 89, 91, 93. Then we switched to even numbered years. Now, that brings up another point. We're only going to talk about this briefly because I have done a whole show on this with Steve Dasbach. Something that's super frustrating to me. And I can understand why people do it, but also you need to step back and realize that unless you're like a huge brain, you know, like bigger brain than everyone else in the party, if you've come up with something that if only we did this would make us successful, and you think that you are the first person to think of that, and other people haven't explored it, again, you're either the smartest person in the party or you just think way too highly of yourself. And one of those things is, why don't we elect our presidential candidates the year before? As you can tell, we used to do that. Whenever you're proposing to change something, the first question you should ask yourself is, did we ever do it that way in the past? And if the answer is yes, your next question is, why did we change? Now, maybe the reasons why we changed are no longer applicable. But to just forget the whole past and not even ask why we went to nominating on the same year and just insisting, no, it needs to be earlier, that's just foolish. It's foolish. One reason we did it is because of requirements for state party conventions. Colorado has to have its convention in which we nominate candidates at a certain time of year. Some states even say if you're electing delegates, it has to be at a certain time of the year. Now, people will go, well, you can still have your candidate nominating convention, Colorado, in March or April, which is what is required for us. But that doesn't mean we can't nominate our presidential candidate the year before, in like in August, or this, October convention, potentially. For Colorado, that might work. For other states that only have conventions every other year on even years, you're requiring them to either have another convention on the odd number year in order to select their delegates, or you're forcing them to select their delegates a year ahead of time. And you guys know how volatile membership in the party is. There's people then who won't even be in the party anymore, or they thought they could go and then they can't, and you could go, yeah, but that's what alternates are for, but maybe people would have voted differently. Like, you can't elect people for positions a year ahead of time like that. Well, you could just leave it up to the board of directors. Yeah, that's a super shitty idea. Or you can force them to have another convention that following year in order to elect delegates, costing them money and probably having very low attendance, because that's the only business they'd be conducting. And further, if you listen to that interview with Steve Dasbeck, there are FEC and financial reasons why it is not at all in our candidate's best interest to nominate the year before. It just isn't. You might think so, sitting at home, but it isn't. Now, it would be beneficial, just from a candidate standpoint, according to Mr. Dasbeck, to nominate earlier in the year. But then you screw around with the state parties. So and then there's this other issue, which to me is a bug, not a feature, but some people will consider it a bug, is if we nominate earlier, we don't get the benefit of people who perhaps dropped out of a Republican or Democrat primary that then wants to seek our endorsement. Now, to me, that's a feature, not a bug to have it earlier. But some people would go like, hey, if you had like a Ron Paul or a Justin Amash or a Thomas Massey, wouldn't you want them to run for ours? To me, you don't make rules based on the exceptions. But anyway, that comes up every single year. And there's lots of good reasons why we don't nominate the year before, and why I believe it would be an utter disaster if we did. It might be okay to nominate earlier in the year, but it just won't work out with state parties. It just won't. So anyway, to move on, that was historical, though. That dealt with history, so I'm fine with that rabbit trail. Next, this is the last column we're going to cover for tonight. We're going to have a bunch more LP history shows to get through this whole LP news by the end of December. So it says, press responds to LP candidates. Get out my handy-dandy flashlight here again. Libertarians have generally been worried that if and when the press began to report on our activities, the reporting would be mostly hostile. Well, back then, it really It wasn't that hostile. We've read some of it. It's pretty hostile today, though, isn't it? Now, as the LP is giving the libertarian movement increased national publicity, we can look at the resulting news coverage. The Ithaca Journal confessed editorially to a certain fondness for Jerry Tuccelli. I'm going to look this up. I want to see if I can find this editorial. It is noted that he often has some good things to say. Dave, we don't have primaries, though. Nominating at convention isn't the same as a primary, and I don't know if that makes a difference. I'm just noting that, and I know some people think we should want to be in the primaries. I say absolutely not. We shouldn't be participating in force-funded activities if we can opt out. And I know some states are forced into it. Every once in a while, Colorado is forced into it. But we opt out whenever we can. Primaries shouldn't be a thing. Taxpayers shouldn't have tax victims, more accurately, shouldn't have to pay for private associations to pick their candidates. Several papers were obviously intrigued by the fact that it is difficult to stereotype libertarians as either liberals or conservatives. The New York Post, for example, said that the LP was a party which tends to defy easy ideological characterization, and that remains true. I'm going to look up these articles. The Post also wrote that of all the minor party candidates, only Jerry Tuccelli, a whiz at staging publicity stunts, has gotten any recognition. Tuccelli is even stealing votes from Governor Wilson. A Tarrytown, New York newspaper hit another note that was often struck in press coverage: the LP's consistency and lack of opportunism. The paper said that Tuccelli came across as a man of principles rather than a pragmatist. The Washington Post conservative columnist George F. Will praised Tuccelli's intelligent approach. Is there anyone among what we loosely call the serious candidates this year who is talking as intelligently about anything as Tuccelli is talking about the connection between New York City's rent control laws and New York City's housing shortage? An editorial in the Dallas Morning News praised the campaign efforts of LP candidates around the country and said that Americans more and more see just how damaging have been the effects of federal deficits caused by ever more ambitious, ever more costly programs of social uplift. In an earlier opinion column in the same paper, traditionalist conservative William Murchison said that libertarians are a voice that needs badly to be heard. Murchison said that libertarians have one virtue that they share with 19th century liberals: a profound belief in individual liberty. He said, to the whole trend of excessive government interference with freedom, freedom to make a profit, freedom to ply one's trade, lead one's life, to all this, the Libertarian Party has much to say. He suspects, moreover, that the LP's message should be of keen interest to most Americans. The members of the Freedom newspaper chain, founded by libertarian non-voter R.C. Hoyles, I think he owned that newspaper in Colorado Springs. I forgot what it was called. It'll come to me, but I think this gentleman owned that newspaper as well, because there was a lot of libertarian coverage in Colorado Springs. For example, the Anaheim Bulletin applauded the LP's resoluteness and its ability to popularize, I think it was called the Banner. I don't know why I keep thinking about that. And who was that anarchist guy? He had a school in Colorado Springs for a while. He was part of SLAM, the Student Libertarian, something. God, I'm like totally losing my memory right now. What the heck was the name of his academy? Rampart. That's what his academy was called, Rampart Academy. Now I'll remember his name again in a second. Super famous anarchist guy. He's the one who invented the term, if I remember correct, was it Kockin? Konkin? I think it was Konkin. Maybe it wasn't, though. And maybe it wasn't Samuel Konkin. But I think it was the guy who invented the term partyarchy for those anarchists who just can't let go of the remaining tentacle of the state, that being political parties. So I'm a proud partyarchist. For example, applauded the LP's resoluteness and its ability to popularize important ideas. The Clovis News Journal, another freedom paper, cited the LP's statement of principles as offering a good summary of the libertarian position. The Petersburg Progress Index said that LPer Roger Lee McBride was one of the first to start a stampede away from the GOP when he cast his electoral college vote for John Hospers and Tony Nathan. I want to look up Rampart right now because I'm trying to remember if it was Konkin that Dave, if you haven't watched that show I did with Steve Dasbach, he addressed all of that as to why it's not a good idea. And he did deal with that campaign limit thing. So Rampart, was it called Rampart College? I know it burnt down. I might need to look up. Yeah, I might need to look it up on Lpedia because it obviously doesn't exist anymore. Does anyone remember this? So let me just look up Rampart and see what comes up on Lpedia. Yep, Rampart College. How do you pronounce his name? Lefebvre, not Konkin. Robert however you pronounce his name. Yes, that's who it was. Rampart College. Now let's see if we can find out what the name of the newspaper was in Colorado Springs this guy used to have. His name was R.C. Hoyles. So let's look him up. Colorado Springs newspaper. Telegraph. Gazette Telegraph. That was the name of it. Okay. It was going to drive me crazy until I figured that out. Now, Dave, you might not agree with Steve Dasbach, but he does deal with that point. And he deals with it as someone who has ran presidential campaigns. He's been in the party a long time, has worked on a lot of campaigns. He's got real life experience rather than theoretical experience that maybe we could do this. He has experience as to what actually happens. And again, people can disagree with him, say that things have changed, but I highly recommend that show to anyone who is interested. And in fact, I'm going to see if I can get the title up here on the screen so you guys can look it up. The audio is not great, unfortunately. But let me see if I can find it for you guys. 1 second here. Oh, my internet connection is so slow right now. Okay, let's see. Dasbach. Yeah, it's right here. I am going to put this on the screen so y'all can see the title if you want to look it up. And oh, I misspelled something. Am I logged in? I'm going to change that if I can. Edit video. I put something wrong in the title. Instead of ticket, I had ticker. Let's change that to ticket. Okay. Oh. Might help if I spelled ticket right. Okay. Let me pull this back up. What's happening here? Hold on. Back one right there. Okay, so let me share my screen with you. So you can see, let me move this so that you guys can see it. Did that help? I don't know if that helped on the screen. Well, the title of the show is, it says reset at the beginning because I had to clean up the audio. Interview with Steve Dasbach. Should the LP nominate its Prez ticket earlier? So I'd really suggest listening to that. It's about an hour long interview. Bunchy's kind of in the way. You can't see the title. Let me put him down for a second. So you can see right there the title at the bottom of the screen. Okay. Alrighty, that I think, well, no, there was a couple. Let's do these other little boxes, and then that will be it for this evening. I've went over a half an hour, but it hasn't been an hour, so that's good. So letters to the editor, starting with the January-February issue of LP News. A $10 prize, will be awarded to the author of the best letter to the editor or radio or TV editorial response by an LP member. The LP must be mentioned in the letter or reply in order to qualify. The LP News editorial staff will be solely responsible for determining the winner. That would be kind of cool to do again, to have some kind of prize. I think I might suggest that. Yeah, Dave, he had thought we should do it in February or March. That would be cool, don't you think? And either to be put on the website, to motivate people to do letters to the editor or call in to talk radio shows, but $10 ain't gonna cut it. And I really don't think giving away money's the way to do it, but maybe to have some other kind of prize. Interesting. I think I'm gonna bring that up to Angela. I like that idea. Then it says notice. The National Executive Committee will vote by mail, and this was literally by U.S. mail. We used to have mail ballots. Now, I haven't seen any of them. None of them survive, at least that I have seen in the historical records, but that would be cool. Actually, there is a mail ballot that survives, but it wasn't the Executive Committee. It was back when Arizona was disaffiliated. Yes, a lot of people don't know that, but Arizona was disaffiliated in the 96, 97-ish. There were two factions. When we get to that part of history, we'll talk about it. But because it wasn't clear who was correct, the LNC just disaffiliated the whole lot of them and then sent out a mail ballot to all the national members in Arizona asking them which faction they wished for us to affiliate with. And I have those mail ballots, which is interesting. I don't know if I have them all, but I know I have a big stack of them. Okay. So the National Executive Committee will vote by mail in February to choose delegates to the platform and Constitution, Bylaws, and Rules Committees. And bylaws was hyphenated. When did that custom change to stop hyphenating the word bylaws? JJ, if you're here, when in Roberts did they stop hyphenating the word bylaws? Because I'm noticing in the 70s and early 80s, that was like common practice, and then now it's not. Any LP member wishing to be on either of these committees at the 1975 convention in New York should send their names and any supporting material to the national headquarters as soon as possible. There is also an at-large vacancy on the XCOM, which will be filled at its May meeting in Chicago. Those interested in this post should also contact the headquarters. May of, I guess, 75. Let's see if we knew about that meeting. Let's look up. This is how I start filling in the gaps on LPedia, is I read about things in LP News and I just start adding them to the storehouse of information. So list of LNC meetings. I'm going to pull this up. But let's see if we knew about one in May of 75 in Chicago. And we did. I want to show you. So we must have filled this in. So this is also something you guys can help with if you end up finding out about meetings or something. So if you look at this list here, which I'm going to hide this widget here a second. So if we go to the top, it's called List of LNC Meetings. But if you scroll down, we see here, May 1975, Chicago. But we don't know who chaired that meeting. We don't know who was the secretary at that meeting. I mean, it was probably the party chair and party secretary, but we don't know that for sure. And we don't have minutes for that meeting. All we know is that in May, and we actually know the date, 24th, 1975, there was an LNC meeting in Chicago, Illinois. But as you can see, we have started to fill in a lot of gaps here. So we have some super early minutes. I don't have minutes for these, meetings here, but there was summary of what happened in the LP News, so I included that. So when we go down to the 80s, you can see we're starting to get some minutes, but there's still a lot of unknowns. But starting 89, the minutes, and here's where we start having a lot more minutes. But there's still quite a few unknown sets of minutes. And let's see, going into the 2000s, yeah, look, we're missing November 13th through 14th, 2004 minutes. What website is this? This is an outside link. Let's see where this goes. Oh, I need to download these then. And you want to see what's funny? We had some sloppiness. I mean, periodically every group does, but if you notice this page of minutes here, minutes, it says draft. So they never got finalized. The December 2002, let's see if they still say draft on them. Yep, look, never finalized. That's insane to me. And what's weird, I have to check our bylaws, but you see how Steve Gavot was the secretary? He is from Colorado. But if you go down to the bottom, there was a recording secretary. And I don't know if that was in our bylaws or it was just something that was the custom of that LNC. Now, it might not be for LNC. Oh, it doesn't say here. But, like, let's go to list of executive committee meetings. You'll see what I mean. List of LNC executive committee meeting minutes. So if we go like where would they be? 1990s maybe. Yeah. Okay, here you see in 95 Steve Dosbach was the chair, and we have a secretary of the meeting, Gary E. Johnson. But you can see the actual party secretary was John Fulmero. But if you go to the bottom of the minutes, it says respectfully submitted Gary E. Johnson, recording secretary. Again, I don't know if this was a custom or whether our bylaws at the time had a separate position of recording secretary. I'm really interested in that. I don't know the answer to that yet. And that Gary E. Johnson is not the same Gary Johnson who is a presidential candidate. There were two prominent Gary Johnsons in our party. So if you go to Lpedia and you go to Gary Johnson, you'll see there's a disambiguation page. There is more than one Gary Johnson in libertarian circles. And both of them had the middle initial of E. So Gary Earl Johnson is the former New Mexico governor. Gary Edward Johnson is the one who was recording secretary in those minutes. And then we had a gubernatorial candidate who was W. Gary Johnson. So just some bit of trivia there for you. All right. Let me put the widget back up. See if there's any comments before I head off for the evening. Yeah, it could be pro tem. JJ is talking about the recording secretary. I don't know. I just find it super interesting, and I want to get to the bottom of it. Because during that period of time, and it wasn't when Steve Gavot was secretary, it was when John Fulmero was secretary. So I don't know what that was all about. Uh-oh, death has shown up. Time to scoot. All right, everyone. That is it for this evening. Oh, that's what she said, JJ. On that note, I'll see you tomorrow. We'll probably have a short show. Bye-bye.
gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe.